You are now listening to the Tapped In Podcast by Bailey Scott. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to the pod. I've missed recording a pod every morning. Now that I'm sitting here and I'm doing it, I missed it. And I really feel like I have a lot to release today. So, just to give you a little rundown, it's been a week in Cali. If you live here, you would know that it's been rainy and cold. It's just not the vibes. It's been very cold. If you don't live in California, just know California has a wintertime, okay? In Southern California, I mean, not like Big Bear and like all that up there, but like Southern California does have a winter. I have not seen snow, but it's very, very cold. No, there isn't any snow. But anyway, so it's just been a very chilly week. My parents came to visit. It was so amazing. Even though they came when it was like the rainiest and the coldest that it's ever been here. It was still an experience. But yeah, so Cali has just been, obviously an experience for me. It's been working in my favor and then not, and then working and then not. But there's ups and downs. There's duality to everything. So I'm just embracing it all as I'm just here by myself. But I kind of wanted that to be the premise of this video today. Being alone. And I'm not alone, but I don't have a partner, and that's okay. I don't need one. I'm 20. I'm alone in LA, but I can't lie and say that I haven't thought about what it would be like to have a partner through this process. And I feel like that there's a little sliver of me that is codependent and feels like that I would rely on someone in order to bring me comfort to this situation. So if you're like me, I'm a very much relationship kind of person. I have been in a relationship for about like 3 years. And before that, I was in a relationship for like 9 months. I'm a very like longevity kind of person. I start things. If I feel things, I have to follow through with them. And that's just how I work. But now that I'm not alone. When I say alone, like I'm not like physically alone. It's just when I say I'm alone, I am just kind of going through a period of time in my life where I'm just with me, myself, and I, which isn't a bad thing at all. It's a very much needed season for me. And the universe gives me what I need and not what I want all the time. And that's okay. I'd rather have what I need than what I want, because what I want would not help me grow. Because if I were to be given what I want, I would probably be in a long distance relationship right now, and it would just not be healthy probably, if I'm being fully honest. So I feel like for me, this time alone is very much needed for my growth. So I'm going through it, but what I want to talk about today is how being single and being alone doesn't have to feel like you're single or feel like you're alone. Because there was this time period before I got into my long-term relationship, and I was single for like a year and a half or something. And I was so like insecure and sad and constantly thinking about my ex and constantly thinking about like, why does nobody want to date me? Everyone thinks that my friend is prettier than me, and like just comparing myself. And it was just a very toxic cycle I had with myself while I was single. So now that I'm going through this season of being single, I'm noticing that it's doing the same thing. Like I'm noticing my patterns, aka first episode. So I'm noticing my patterns and I'm realizing like I'm comparing my single life and my single situation to everybody else's. And I don't like that. Now that I'm in a place, because when I was single, like the first time, not the first time, but you know what I'm talking about. When I was single before the long-term relationship, I was like 17, maybe. I was like 16. So I was in high school and like everyone around you is getting in from one relationship to another and, you know, hugging in the hallways and stuff like that. And I was just like, I want that to be me. You know what I mean? Like poor me. Like, right. Like a literal 16-year-old. You don't need to be in a relationship. But anyway, so I was just kind of going through that mentally, not even noticing in my head that I had patterns because I was young and I didn't know what patterns were, like internal patterns. So I was just kind of doing it and going through it, whatever. And I was allowing things and I was accepting things that I didn't truly want, just for the sole purpose of not wanting to be alone. Because there was this time period that I was with this random guy for like 3 weeks. I didn't like him at all, but I was with him because I was like, oh my gosh, he's the first guy that's showing interest in me and like the first in like a year and a half. So I hopped on it and it ended up not being good. He ended up being very toxic and rude. And it didn't break my heart really. I only was heartbroken for like a day about it, honestly. That's how like meaningless it was to me. But it just kind of shows me right now that like I was willing to accept anything at that point. And then someone even better came along. And then that's where my long-term relationship came from. But anyway, so now that I'm going through this single stage, I'm kind of starting to notice that like, okay, am I starting to accept whatever just for the sake of me not wanting to be alone or just for the sake of me wanting codependency? And to me, for me, that's a toxic cycle. I can't just get into something just because I feel alone. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a reason for everything and there's a reason for feelings. And, you know, feeling lonely is honestly something I'm allowing to put myself through, you know? I'm not alone and I just feel lonely because I crave codependency. And if you're like me and you're an emotional person and you feel like you find comfort through relationships and through other people, I want you to realize, and I want myself to realize, that solitude is so healthy. And going through, because I was talking to my life coach about this yesterday, going through this single stage, knowing your dating process is so healthy and beneficial, and that's self-care to a T. So if you're like me, my process, quote unquote, would be I require us to meet in person, like always. I prefer to meet people in person first. That way I can sense right off the bat and be like, or yeah, like let's hang out, whatever, you know, and not everything starts off with me thinking things will be in a relationship. I am one of those people that needs a casual friendship or something that is just casual besties first before I can even like indulge in like lovey feelings. That's just what I've noticed about myself throughout my whole life. Like I've always been friends with someone first before I've dated them. That's just how it's worked out for me, and those have been my longest relationships. But yeah, I prefer to meet someone in person. I prefer for us to kind of act like besties, you know? We don't have to be friends for months before I even think about dating them, but what I would like is to have like a friend-like relationship, like buddies, I don't want to feel like I have to have a boyfriend all the time, or a girlfriend or whatever. I want to have a friend. I want to have a best friend. I want to have someone I can turn to when things are easy, when things are hard, when things, are fun. I want to have someone that I can go to that is like a bestie, you know what I mean? Because my besties are, one of the main roles in my life that make me grateful to be alive. So if I can have a partner that resembles that and can be friends with my friends, then it's just to me like an all around good situation. So that's part of my dating process, is that I would like us to be friends. I feel like that's a lot of people's preference too. I feel like it's very understanding. And another part of my process is like consistency. I know we have all different lives. I totally understand. But one thing that I do consider part of my dating process is I want to see that you can be consistent. I want to see that I can rely on you in some way, because as a friend, I wouldn't want to be friends with you if you're not texting me back in a week, and then you text me randomly and be like, hey, let's hang out. I'd be like, I literally thought you were ghosting me. You know what I mean? But hey, to me, it shows a lack of interest, because as adults and as young adults, I know that you're on your phone. And to me, it's just kind of rude to look at texts and just ignore them as if they're not there. And then you'll text me back a week later, not even discussing the conversation that we had prior. And you're just like, hey, want to hang out. To me, as a friend, I wouldn't like that. So most definitely, I would not want to date someone that is like that. And that's just a boundary I'm setting. And it's okay to have boundaries. I feel like that I need to follow these boundaries as I'm growing up to become more of Bailey, because I'm not going to let my inner critic and my inner thoughts that aren't really mine depict what I want this life. Because what I would say, the thoughts that aren't mine are the thoughts that go like, you don't know how to flirt with people, so that's why they're not responding. Or you're not interesting enough, that's why that they didn't want to text you back. Or, maybe they don't want to be consistent because you're not pretty enough. You know what I mean? Like those were the thoughts that would go through my head as a child, meaning 16, 17, and therefore are the thoughts that linger in my mind now because of what I'm going through right now. And I'm now in a place of awareness where I'm noticing these thoughts, I'm noticing these patterns. So that's step one. So I've acknowledged step one, and I'd like you to acknowledge your step one. If you are single, if you're newly single, if you've been single for a while, whatever the case is, I want you to notice step one, acknowledgement, awareness. What are the repeating thoughts that you have in your mind that make you feel like that the same things keep happening to you and the same kinds of people keep showing up in your life? Because my life coach, Troy, told me at the end of the day, it's not the people anymore. It's me, because I'm accepting it into my life, and I'm just accepting anything because of what I'm telling myself. But if you tell yourself that you have a dating process, and if someone does not meet this dating process, that's how you know that they're not the one. Why give them a chance if you already know that it's not what you want? You know what I mean? Because I'm one of those people where I'm like, everyone has layers. Like, I want to get to know them. You know what I mean? But like Troy said, it's not for me to pile under these layers to get to know someone. They should just want to be vulnerable with me. And if they have a hard time being vulnerable, then I already know that I can't be in any kind of relationship, friendship, relationship with them, because I feel like I can be vulnerable very easily. I mean, clearly, my podcast is just full of vulnerability. So being with a person that has a difficult time with being open about how they feel, or being open about how they've just been brought up in this life, having a problem with being vulnerable, to me, I don't want to consider a red flag, because we're all going through different stages in this life, and sometimes it comes later with others than it does with others, and sometimes people can be vulnerable about other things and not vulnerable about other things. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's different variables, but I feel like that if you can give a sense of vulnerability to me, to make me feel like I'm getting to know you, to make me feel like that I can be comfortable around you because you open up, I open up, our hearts are open, we're expressing feelings. To me, that is a great way to show vulnerability. And to me, that's a green flag, And I feel like that should be and is part of my dating process. I want someone to be able to be open, vulnerable, talk about what you love, talk about what you create, talk about why you create it, talk about, where you came from, how it made you who you are. And you know what I mean? To me, that's how you start a friendship too. You have to be open. You have to be able to use your vulnerability as a superpower to create that great connection, because all of my friendships have such a deep level of vulnerability, and that's why I have such powerful, strong, and committed relationships or friendships. So yeah, to me, this single process is showing me what I really want in this life. Because like I said in the beginning of this episode, I am a long-term person. I don't like to do little dates here and there. I bet it would be fun. I don't know. I haven't really gone through a quote unquote dating stage, so I wouldn't really know if I like it or not. But what I would know is if it feels right. What I would know is if it feels right. And I feel like my gut is very strong. I feel like my intuition is very heightened. Not only because I'm a woman, but also because I feel like the more that you listen to your body and the more you listen to yourself, the more that you not move forward with your mind, but you move forward with your body, you're just listening to it better. You know what I mean? And I feel like my gut knows the truth. So, yeah, I always follow my gut. I always follow my intuition, and it's normally always right. There are times where I listen to my gut and I learn a lesson, where at the end of the day, what I went through wasn't very fun, for example, I met somebody online on Snapchat. We met up in person and it was not fun. I had not a good time. I'm being fully honest. It was very lame. And I had no intention of liking this guy or wanting to date him or anything. I literally just saw it as a friendship kind of thing. 'Cause over text, he seemed so cool. And then it was, the in-person hangout that made me realize I don't even want to be friends. It was just, when the vibes just are not right. You know what I'm talking about. When you hang out with that one person in the friend group, that's just not the vibe. That's who he kind of was. We hung out. It wasn't good. And I feel like there was something weird going on because I was like, you know what? I want to hang out with him just because for the sake of me wanting to get out there, wanting to put myself through an uncomfortable situation. And if you watch my YouTube channel, it was him that I was hanging out with when I quoted or when I titled the video, "Get ready with me for a quote unquote date." It wasn't a date, but I just put a date because, like, hello, clickbait. But anyway, yeah, so that situation was definitely a learning lesson. I needed to learn from him about what I want and what I don't want, you know? So I feel like following your gut won't always give you what you want, but it'll give you what you need. Because the universe is inside you. God is inside you. And, you know, we all are our own highest selves. So when our highest self puts us through something that is a learning lesson, instead of looking back and like hating ourselves for it or looking back and cringing at it, we can look back and realize I needed to go on that to experience what I truly want in this life, clearly. So yeah, that was definitely a learning lesson for me. So I do have some trust issues with meeting people online. I do have some, ifs, ands, and buts about meeting people on the internet, whether that's dating app, whether that's meeting someone on Instagram or Snapchat and then meeting them in person. I definitely am iffy about it. And I'm not saying that like things can't happen. I mean, so many people meet great people on the internet, but like I said in the beginning of this episode, I'm an in-person kind of person. If we vibe over the internet, I would love for us to call and talk. You know what I mean? I want to hear how your voice sounds. I want to hear what a conversation would be like before I'm stuck in a car with you or stuck in a restaurant with you or something. You know what I mean? But that's just where my mind goes. And I feel like that since that situation, I've had trust issues with the internet, but my life coach told me to take that experience as a lesson and not completely give up on something that could be an open door for me. You know what I mean? Just, I'm not closing any doors. That's all I'm going to say. But what I am saying is your gut will know even when it is not a very good date or even if it's not a match. You know what I mean? You're learning about yourself when you hang out with those people because everybody is a mirror. Everybody is a reflection of you. So if you're hanging out with someone and you're realizing like, I do not like their vibe, you need to realize how they are reflecting in you. And that's a really hard thing to accept. And I'm saying this for myself, 100%. It is a very hard thing to accept because how are you going to hang out with someone that's either talking too much or is too boring or is just kind of not like very consumed in themselves and they don't even ask you about yourself. They have no interest in like wanting to learn about you. They just kind of are fixated on themselves. How can this be reflected through you? How are their actions going to reflect how you are possibly to certain people? You know what I mean? Because I do really feel like every person we come across is a reflection of us in a weird way. And everybody is a mirror. And taking the time to getting to know yourself through other people is very hard. But I also feel like it's a very adult way to do things, like hanging out with other people, learning lessons about yourself through watching other people. You're observing others while you also are observing yourself. It's a very weird situation, but I feel like it's a very healthy thing to do. So yeah, I feel like that this single talk was very needed for me. I might be going on a date this week. So I'm just going to revert back to this episode whenever I'm feeling certain things. I don't know. Because if you're like me, I feel things really hard. So if I'm in a real discomfort mode, I will feel it to the max. box, So it's going to be hard for me to be in this situation where I'm uncomfortable and I'm looking at someone and I'm trying to see how I reflect in them. But it's all a learning curve. So we all just have to accept every single stage that we go through in this life. We have to go through it with awareness. And for me acknowledging my toxic patterns within myself is helping me realize, like, okay, I need a process. I need a dating process. I need a single person process. If you can't hang out with me in person, burn. If you can't call me, burn. If you can't be the slightest bit vulnerable with me, you know what I mean? So I really feel like that this conversation was needed for me, so that as I go through this single life in California, I'm not just going to be accepting guys left and right, because I'm not trying to make every single person a lesson, okay? Like, everyone is a lesson. Everybody in your life is a lesson. Everyone that comes in, everyone that goes out, everyone that stays in, everybody is a lesson. Everyone is a mirror. So I feel like me going through this life, accepting that and being like, you know what, I'll regret it if I don't. I'll regret it if I don't do it. Then that's just pretty much how I'm going to go through this experience, because when you're surrounded by people that, have partners, of course they're going to talk about it, because like they're my friends, and I love when my friends talk to me about what they're doing, what dates they're going on, how they describe the person to me, if they like them, or, you know what I mean? They talk about the date or something like that. I'm interested, but there's also that little inner critic in me that always is just going, but that's not you. When's your date? Oh, you don't have one? Oh, interesting. You know what I mean? And it's very annoying. I don't want to be hearing that Bob all the time. I'm trying to make a life for myself. And what I also am realizing is, like, maybe I'm not ready to date. And that is a hard realization, because you're like, damn, all I really do got is myself, huh? Yes. Even in a relationship, all you have is yourself, Just because you get into a relationship doesn't mean that, okay, now I can stop focusing on myself and not only focus on this relationship. No. Being alone and being in solitude is so healthy for whenever you do get into a relationship. Healthy dependency. You don't fully rely on them for happiness or for whatever you would rely your partner on. You know what I mean? You just are able to healthily coexist with them and love them fully and be there for them. And you also know how to not let the relationship consume your life in an unhealthy way. Because I can totally see how relationships can change lives, for sure. Like, if you fully love someone and you are ready to take the next step because the love there is so strong, I'm not one of those people that's like, hold it off or whatever, because feelings are strong, and when they're there, they're there. You know what I mean? You can't ignore them. But it has to be a healthy balance. It has to be somewhat like, you know how to take care of yourself. Even if you're in a relationship, you know how to fully be able to indulge in yourself still, even in a relationship. So I feel like me going through this single process is helping me realize, like, what does Bailey want? What does Bailey need? What will help Bailey through this process? And I'm just really glad that I have my life coach, Troy, to help me through this. And I'm so glad that I have my friends and my roommates to really help me through this process of kind of not being alone. I don't like saying being alone, but just being single, I guess, It's making me grateful that I'm single because honestly, I'm building the relationships around me. And if I'm being honest, when I'm in a relationship, I'm mostly focusing on how to build the relationship instead of focusing on the relationships around me. So that's why I'm glad I'm single now, because I can focus on the relationships around me. And most importantly, I can focus on the relationship with myself, because clearly it needs some development. Clearly it needs some growth. And I'm just excited. I'm excited for the unknowns that I have in this life. I'm excited for the present moment. And I'm just excited that I have this time for myself, because low key, when I was in a long-term relationship, literally towards the end, all I thought about was, what if I was single right now? I would probably enjoy it, And now that I am single, I'm saying, oh my God, like, I'm so lonely. Girl, you wanted this, It's almost like these feelings that come up of loneliness, I've wanted them. Even though I cry and I get sad about it, a deep, deep part of me has wanted to be single because I've wanted to only rely on myself. There's a part of me that only wants me for me. And I'm glad that I'm finally in a place where I can say that and I can do that. I am here for myself and nobody else. And I am doing this for myself for absolutely nobody else. And it feels good to be a little selfish. So, yeah, that's it. I know that there is someone who is in particular that is recently single. And I love you. And I want you to know that having solitude will gain awareness within yourself. And awareness within yourself is the mastery of self, which I just finished that book. Great book, guys. But yeah, so thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really feel like I needed to let that all off my chest. And I really hope that someone got something from this episode. I hope that someone single is listening to this and feels a little bit better about being single now. So, yeah, thank you so much. Stay tapped in for the next episode. Thank you.